joining us tonight. My name is Mike Tellerino, CEO of K9 for Veterans. I'm here with Tim Ozinga, who is running for state representative at the 37th Ward, and also my co-host, Jillian Jans.
Hello.
Tim, why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about yourself first?
Absolutely. So I'm Tim Ozinga. If you have heard the Ozinga name, you're probably familiar with it because of the red and white striped concrete mixers that you see all over Chicagoland. We have the opportunity to participate in building communities, and so it's an exciting place to be.
What made you decide to run for state representative?
Oh, that's a good question. So this has been a passion of mine. Politics and public service has been a passion of mine since I was in high school, and actually got into my college career and started going to school for business, and obviously, and then political science as well. And in 2008, my dad actually ran for U.S. Congress.
Oh.
Okay.
And this was like the most exciting thing for me ever. So I actually took the year off of school.
Oh,
and I
that's
was
amazing.
like,
So were you part of his campaign?
I was. So I worked full time on the campaign, and a lot of the folks that were on the campaign were like, politics is bad, I'm never getting involved in this ever again. For me, it was exactly the opposite. It got me really excited and kind of got the bug then. And
So from that point on, this is something you wanted to do?
For sure, for sure.
Well, I've met you before. You were at a couple of at our event for K9, and just talking with you, I got the feeling that you're just a good person. You're a Christian. You have an awesome family. You're a family man. You're just, you've got all the qualifications. Running for state representative, tell us what your goals would be.
Absolutely. So, being in a family business, fourth generation family business, it was passed down from us generation to generation that the reason why we're in business is to honor and glorify God and serve the crown as His creation.
Right.
That's something we've always talked about as a family. And as a business, we talk a lot about our purpose, and it's to have a positive impact on people, families, and the community. And that's something that has been passed down generation to generation. And so really a lot of the kind of passion and the motivation for doing this is to give back. I don't need another job.
No.
I'm doing pretty good right now. But so don't need another job, don't need the paycheck, don't need the pension, but really want to...
You're doing this because of a passion that you have to help.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And a desire to make the world a better place, essentially.
For sure.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I had Steve on my show,
Who's Steve?
and he had mentioned something that I still think about all the time. When Ozinga first started, the war had broken out. Am I right with this? Why don't you tell us? You could probably tell it better than I can.
It's funny because I was just talking to Dad about this the other day, but Ozinga was started by my great-grandpa back in 1928, but before that, he immigrated to the United States in the late 1890s as a young boy. He decided he didn't want to get into the family business then, which was farming, and actually got into a career of law enforcement. Was a Cook County Sheriff, motorcycle riding police officer.
Really?
Later became the chief of police, and this was during the 20s in the Prohibition era. And he was so, Al Capone, mobsters, all this stuff in Chicago, and we're just in Evergreen Park, just outside the city limits. And he realized, if I'm going to survive much longer, he was trying to start a family, that I might want to find a new line of work. So that's when Ozinga got started in 1928. And shortly after that, the Great Depression happened, which was not a good time to start the business.
Right.
It's depressing.
Yeah, so he survived. He actually got a loan from his mother-in-law that helped keep the business afloat, which is kind of a funny story. And then shortly after that, World War II broke out. He had 4 sons and a daughter. His 3 sons were quick to enlist to go participate in World War II. So my grandpa actually became a flight instructor for the Marines.
Really?
His brother was a fighter pilot for the Army Air Corps. Lieutenant Ozinga, and then the other brother went to the Navy. But
So you have a whole history of service to our country through the military.
Yes.
But what I found interesting, that you felt this need to go serve the country, so you basically closed the company down.
That's right.
I mean, even though you had just started it, it was starting to prosper. It was far more important for you to serve our country than it was to worry about your business. So, I mean, to me, that says a lot about the family and who you are and what your beliefs are.
For sure. And I heard stories about my great-grandpa, and they were really all in for the country. And I actually was talking to my dad the other day, and he mentioned that great-grandpa wasn't sure if they would come back or not. And
Right. Or what they would come back to.
And so they shut the doors down for those 3 years or so, and thank the Lord, they were all able to return. And shortly after that, when they got back, they kind of dusted off the equipment. I think about half the trucks weren't working anymore.
It's just an amazing story. It really is. I mean, that you put service to the country first, and then just did what you did to serve, and look where you're at today. I mean, Ozinga is probably one of the biggest companies in Chicago. You do some amazing things yourself as a person. You have some really strong family ties. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your family?
Yeah, so being in a fourth-generation family business, a lot of what we do is about family. So I have the opportunity to work alongside 5 brothers and a cousin on a daily basis.
So you work with your entire family with Ozinga?
Every day.
These guys argue?
We get along pretty well. I think that was a testament to my mother, who did a lot of praying for us. And but yeah, so it's the 6 of us brothers. And we have one cousin that's also involved in the business, and people ask us all the time, like, how does that work?
Yeah, you think that would be a little difficult at times, right, Joe?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, one of the secret sauces we have is we once a month we get together and don't talk about business on purpose, and we pray with each other. We get to know each other on a relationship basis. We get to know how each other's families are doing, and really try to get an understanding.
So you're very close-knit
I'm trying to build that bond that is outside of the things that are necessary, but the things that are mattering to each as a person, and not just
Family
a
ties.
business partner and all those kind of things.
For sure, for sure.
It's just an amazing story. What are some of the things as a state representative that you would like to see happen that aren't happening now? What would be one of the first things that has a priority with you being an elected state representative? What would you put first?
Well, first of all, we live in the state of Illinois, which I truly believe is one of the best states in the entire country. We have such hardworking, amazing people in the state. We have an abundance of natural resources in the state, from the Great Lakes to the river systems to natural gas and farmland, and there's everything is going for Illinois. We have one of the best cities in the country or the world, potentially, and it's it's really sad to see that the state is falling behind, and most of the reason is because of the governance and the management of the state. And so I would really love to see and hopefully be able to affect change as a state representative to really start to turn our state around. And some of the things that I look at that really are near and dear to my heart is creating an environment that allows everyone, regardless of your background, to accomplish the American dream. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's being made harder and harder for people every day in the state, because it's hard to make ends meet, especially with all the burdens of the taxes, property taxes, and everything else. And that's a big part of it, is how can we kind of help people reach financial freedom? How can we help turn the tide back on some of the corruption and just waste that's going on?
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
The first one is, what kind of history or knowledge do you have when it comes to veterans issues and stuff like that would be impacted by your serving as a state representative?
So the company has a long history of supporting a lot of veterans organizations. So that's something we believe in, because we just have a lot of gratitude.
You have experience with it too. That's a big part of it is having that. You're especially having people in the military. It makes it a little bit easier to understand the sacrifices that they make.
Yeah. And
I'm speaking specifically about policies and stuff like that are affecting our veterans. Last year we talked about they were changing some gun laws, stuff like that. Just, are you more inclined to be understanding of the veteran aspect of it, or are you more inclined to look at the civilian side? Like, is that a...
Absolutely. I mean, I think we owe a tremendous debt to our veterans, and I think we need to really consider them in the process. One of the things that we work on from a business perspective a lot is how can we provide job opportunities and opportunities to get involved. So we've participated in a lot of different programs. I was actually, over Christmas break, talking with one of my cousins that's serving, and I'm like, what kind of stuff are you doing? He's in the Army, and he's like, oh, I'm driving these huge transport vehicles.
Oh, that's perfect for you guys.
This 19-year-old guy, and I'm like, are you getting your CDL? And he's like, no, I don't have it yet. And I'm like, well, this is perfect. You know, these guys are driving.
Right.
That's absolutely, that's a lot of driving right now going on over there, so that's perfect for...
Exactly.
Well, what about veteran gets discharged, he's got a CDL, he comes to apply.
But he has
a job
PTSD. Are you guys like open to like hiring people that have that kind of? I mean, it's
Yes, I think
good.
I think
Great.
we're exploring all
Great.
different sorts of options, and
That's wonderful.
We've one of the things that we're doing that's really been working out well is we actually have a corporate chaplaincy service.
Okay.
And we didn't know it at the time, but the one of the main corporate chaplains that we have in charge is also a veteran.
Okay.
And so there's really been this connection between. We have
crazy when you find out, like,
about 110 veterans that currently work for the organization.
That's wonderful.
And just that connection and that bond that's been made has been really a great thing.
And to see how everything kind of overlaps. And there's also, just for your own knowledge and for everybody else out there who's in business and has managing, they have a few different resources online that are very good and reputable that explain how PTSD affects people in business and how it affects people that you'd want to employ and how to handle different situations. So I recommend that highly for anybody who's interested. So.
So, as state representative, okay, what would you like to see change as far as the tax code?
Well, a lot.
That's a tough one.
There's a
I
lot.
know.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done there. It really is.
When you talk tax in Illinois, there's a lot of different.
We're getting
aspects
crazy
to
with
that.
it.
Right. They're
I mean,
they're getting very creative with it.
I mean, they're taxing everything.
So.
I mean,
I think what I hear most when I'm going out walking door to door is property taxes. I think this idea of accomplishing the American dream is home ownership, and it's becoming harder and harder for people to own a home. And part of that is because the taxes. It's almost like having two mortgages on your house.
It's crazy.
So one of the things I'd really like to see how we can change is really working on property tax reform and figuring out ways that we can make.
What about the
that more
budget?
affordable.
That's so
Don't reform the veterans property tax thing though, please, because we
The veterans program is great.
we don't pay taxes, but if you're a certain percentage or above with the VA, that's
Right.
makes a huge difference, especially when you're living
sure.
off of just your
For sure.
VA, like
And the VA
disability
disability program. is
Exactly.
Exactly.
So that's a big
very
thing.
good.
Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I
No,
just
that's okay. It's just amazing. You know, we're so, the budget seems just so out of whack. It really is. I mean, they're taxing everything seems to be being raised. It's getting harder and harder for the public, you know, to make a living and to support themselves. It really is. I mean, I just hit a point where, something needs to be done. We need people like yourself that are going to be in elected office that can make that change, that can bring those changes forward.
And how easily are you able to be contacted by people in your district and whatnot? Is that something that you're kind of actively taking part in, or is that something that you're kind of going to think about later?
No, yeah, accessibility is a big part of it. I live in the community.
Okay.
We work in the community. Our headquarters are in the district. I live in the district. It's we're eat, sleep, and breathe it every day.
Yeah.
And that's a big part about it is accessibility and just being there. And
I do a lot with legislative for our VFW auxiliary, and constantly everything is contact your representative, and it's email them, fax them, write them a letter. So it's something that I just thought of off the top of my head. So that was
for sure.
Good answer.
Well, you know what? I think you have the right approach. You have to be a real person, and you are. I mean, you're sincere. We can, just by talking to you, I think you're going to have the best interests of the public and put them first and foremost, rather than, this is politically right, or, this is, I'm going to vote along party lines. I think from knowing you the way I know you now, I think you're going to vote from your heart, and you're going to vote for what's right for the people of the state of Illinois.
And you'll let the Lord lead you in which direction is
Absolutely.
best for.
And that's the leadership that we need. We need more people that will vote for what's right rather than along
What's popular.
political lines or what's popular
Right.
at the time.
I mean, it's popular as far as what your district would want, but I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
I gotta be careful how I say that.
people like to point the fingers
Oh,
and
yeah.
point the blame, and it happens a lot in Springfield and the federal government and everywhere else. But that's I
It never gets you
completely
anywhere.
agree.
I think
I'm
it's just-
there because I want to do the right things for everybody
Well,
and represent the district
if
well.
you don't mind
Things
me
always have to
saying,
work out for that.
when we were building the Forgotten Warrior Memorial in Shanahan State Park, like anything else, we were depending on donations. And we were at a point where it was getting really, really critical that we really started to fund this memorial if we were going to get it done. Ozinga, your family, your company, stepped up to the plate and made a huge donation to get that wall completed, to honor our veterans that,
To make sure we got over that hump and had it, yeah.
PTSD. So, and it was in large part because of that donation from Ozinga that we were able to physically and actively complete that memorial. So, I can't thank your family, and you do things for other veteran organizations. You don't do them just for us. You're there to assist all veterans, and that's the great part. Being a state representative, being in that position to be able to help people and do the right thing, that's what you're all about. And I can't thank you enough for wanting to, running for office has to be hard. I'm saying it's got to take away from your family, it's got to take away from your business, and like you said, you're not doing it for the check, okay? You're doing it because you want to do what's right for our state.
Yeah.
So, what other things should we know about Tim Ozinga? Tell us what the public should know about you. What would you want them to know, when they go cast that ballot?
Yeah, for
Tell
me,
us a secret.
a secret.
A good secret.
Yeah.
Interesting. A good secret.
That nobody else knows.
Oh, brother. No, so I'm the youngest of 6 boys, so
Okay.
I learned to keep secrets very well. Otherwise, face the
Right.
wrath.
Tell me
But,
about your family. You're married?
I am.
Okay.
I've been married. Been married for going on 11 years now.
So we're on
And
10 this year, so that's a.
It's been
Yeah.
fun. So she's definitely my better half, and as I just mentioned,
I met
It's
her
good-
at
it's good to hear you
our
say that.
event, and she's a wonderful lady. Your children are awesome.
they had an opportunity to come too. So
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
good.
they were there, and I was really
They're all
proud
girls,
to
you
meet
said?
them.
Yeah, so I was
So-
one of 6 boys. Now I have 4 daughters. So
Oh my
So
God.
your home is ruled by just the intelligence of just women. So I feel like that's
absolutely
good
right.
to back you
I
with.
feel
so.
very privileged to be where I'm at, and they're awesome. They're
They'll
really
keep you.
great.
They'll keep your toe to the line. That's for sure.
That's right.
What about term limits? I know that's a pretty hot issue during elections.
Yeah.
How do you feel about term limits?
I would support term limits.
What do you think they should be? 2 terms, 3 terms, 1 term?
I've personally made a commitment to say I don't intend to run for more than 3 terms
Okay.
in this position. I think it does take some time to
Yeah,
get
I
up
don't
to
think
speed
1
and
term
get
is
educated.
Right.
enough to
You have to build up
Get into
momentum and learn the actual.
the ropes of
Right. Absolutely.
what you're doing.
That's
Particularly as a
right.
representative, I mean, the cycles are every 2 years, and so
one of the shorter. Yeah.
It's one of the shorter offices, so it takes some time to get up to speed and be able to really get into leadership.
Right.
But I support it wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
One of kind of the background of that for me is we're in a family business, and in order for family businesses to succeed, you need good succession planning and
Right.
transition planning. And I
Right.
think what we're seeing now in Springfield and in the federal government is these entrenched politicians that are not willing to step down and let the next generation
Pelosi.
lead.
Yeah.
And so I am a firm
Michael.
believer in whatever we can do to make sure that transition is happening,
Right.
that there's generational leadership, that people aren't hanging on longer
life.
than they should.
Yeah.
For life. Some of these positions, you'd swear to God, they were life appointments.
And I mean, in all honesty, we have that in organizations, like how I've mentioned being part of the VFW auxiliary stuff. We've done so many things, and I was president for 5 years in my local one, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen and have witnessed just people who are amazing people. They did the best things that they could have, but then they didn't want to let go of it and to just help foster the next generation. They wanted to instead just dig in and make sure that they didn't have to give it up because they knew what they had to do and they
Right.
thought they would do it better and right.
Right.
So it's something that it does, that the way you said succession leadership, like that's important, so.
How do you feel about the Second Amendment? Now, that's a really hot topic. I mean,
See, I tried to dance around it nicely. He's all over there like asking you straight out. See, you're giving me the eyes. Come on, get out of here with that BS, Michael. Oh, goodness.
I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. You know, I'm a gun owner and a concealed carry holder. And a sportsman, and I think it's something that's an important right that we need to maintain and defend.
You know what, I recently, I watched a show and they were talking about how Sweden has like the lowest sort of anything with
Crime
guns.
rate.
It's, well, not crime, they have the lowest amount of like shootings, like specifically gun stuff. Then they have active or they have active parties where they have guns and beer and everything, and like the biggest thing that they say is, one, they have mandatory military service in their country, so everybody is well equipped with how to use a weapon. And then the second one was that their law is that if you are not actively shooting your gun, you have to have the ammunition separate.
Okay.
Like those are two big things, which I think, like, I mean, in all honesty, you're not going to do mandatory military service like all of a sudden,
Right.
but it's something that besides that, the whole carrying the ammunition separately isn't a bad, idea in an overall sense, but especially when people are calling for such drastic gun reform and everything, and it's
Well, a lot of it goes to what you said. There's a lot of misinformation and
Yes.
misunderstanding
Yes.
of guns and the gun laws that already exist
Right,
and how they're being
absolutely.
enforced. And so,
And that goes,
as a
on
father-
both sides.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's not just the people who are misinformed are people who don't have guns. Even people who have them and all that can be misinformed. They're not
Absolutely.
necessarily all bad people, but it's just something that there's so much information
Right.
now, and you have the internet, and you have such an ability to go down a rabbit hole of the things that you
Right.
believe and that you see and you agree with, and the next thing you know, you're reading some far right or far left
Yeah.
person, and you're actually not getting any sort of the correct information, and
That's-
they believe it so wholeheartedly that it's
That's a big part of
Yep.
our society
Oh, yes,
nowadays, is
it's-
that there's so much access to information that
and so
you
much
can go out
disinformation.
there
It's just,
and
You can find,
confirmation bias or whatever.
oh yeah,
whatever
exactly.
thing you
That's
believe.
exactly what it is.
and it's always slanted one way or the other. Either it's this way or it's that way.
I don't believe people start out that way either. Like I think that they just
No.
start out like oh okay, like I kind of agree with it. Let me read this, and then you just everybody rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody does that. Like you just read one and you're like, okay, I'll read that one more, and then 3 hours later you're like, oh yeah, I hate that too. And it's like
That's how. Yeah, I mean that's how.
yeah.
That's how it gets so polarizing.
Tim, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Tell us a little bit more about
Yeah,
myself.
tell it, yeah.
So I have the opportunity to work in the family business. So we started off, all of us did, in the family business, doing the hard work. So I think my
You know
first.
what it takes to make something a
Yeah,
success.
in my first job, I actually cleaned the office buildings in the morning before I went to school. And
How
old were you?
Tagged along with my brothers when I was about 12.
okay,
And
it's a good
then
time.
starting in summers, starting at like 14, once we were out of junior high, we got put to work, and we got put to work, learning how to operate a shovel and a broom, and doing labor and working operations in the yard and doing all those sorts of things.
Okay, so if you were being interviewed for a job, what would you say your like 3 best qualities are that go along with like your workmanship?
Yeah, so we were all trained to be hard workers,
Okay.
People of integrity and values. That really drives a lot of what we do. We talk a lot as an organization about service learning and entrepreneurship.
Okay, what's service learning? I've never heard that term
So
before.
service learning and then entrepreneurship, and those are kind of the values that we run the organization by.
Okay.
And that's really sort of what I run my life by, and trying to make a positive impact on people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, obviously, running for a state representative, that's a tough thing to do. You have to, like I said earlier, you're taken away from the company, you're taken away from your family. You just got a lot going on right now. I want to thank you for being my guest tonight. I want you to know that, number one, that K9 for Veterans appreciates what the Ozinga family has done for our organization and for other organizations and for veterans in general.
And we fully support you, and we hope that our supporters would go into, at the very least, looking into who you are and what you're about.
Well, why don't you tell them how they could reach you?
Absolutely. So you can find us online at ozingaforil.com or check us out on Facebook and all the other social media sites. You can find content there. But you're welcome to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to have a conversation.
Tim, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming out today and just, let people know who you are. And I think that's really important. I think once people see and know who you are, they're not going to help but they can't help but vote for you because you're just a good guy.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good week.